Please welcome Joe Malone, founder and creative director, Joe Loves.
First of all, Pete and your team, thank you. After 35 years in this industry, you have been there to deliver good news for me every single time. So thank you, WWD and your team, and I'm thrilled to be here to come and share my story. I've learned so much this morning. I've just sat there really pinching myself, looking at all of us from every walk of life, big and small, and sharing our wisdom, sharing our thoughts, sharing our passions. And it's really clear the voice is one voice, and it's Hear Us World, because we're going to come and we're going to change this beauty industry yet again. I've learnt today about PDAs, of which I've just done one. I've just put my lip gloss on in the front row. I've learned about the restoration of humanity to shopkeeping. That really hit me when George said that. It was an amazing moment where I thought, humanity, shouldn't that already be in shopkeeping? What is the power of the millennial? And I have to say, I've never heard that word before until today. And I thought it was something you planted in your garden, but that's a perennial, isn't it? Yeah. The power of the millennial. Boy, do they have a voice. Laser focused. An entrepreneur and a business that is laser. I want to be one of those people. And I loved the passion and the uncompromised attitude of Kat this morning, which made me look and say, I want to be more of that person than the compromised person that sometimes we can be. And the very last one is spray and pray, which I do every day. I travel around the world sharing my story, which is what I've been asked to come and share with you today, but also my thoughts on what is the heartbeat of an indie and an SME. We call them SMEs in England, which is so boring. It means a small to medium enterprise, which is so boring. I much prefer indie. It's much more cool and hip, so I'm going to adopt that. But small to medium enterprises are changing the world, whether it's in the tech industry, film, fashion, music, food, and beauty. We've taken on the world and brought our thoughts and our heart and the resilience of who we are and brought them to the marketplace and are really challenging the way the conventional thought process goes on. But I do go into schools a lot, so I feel I'm qualified to hear the millennial voice. And I go and speak to teenagers who are just about to leave school, and I ask them this question before I go: What do entrepreneurs mean to you? What do you want them to deliver into our marketplace today? And these are three of my favorite ones. They set goals and walk towards them and fulfill them with warrior-like tactics. I love that. Warrior-like tactics. We throw off conventionality and we walk towards that goal. They're people who change the language of the world and cause people to want to drop everything and follow them. I mean, that is so profound. That was a 17-year-old young boy. And the last one, they question and challenge everyone and everything. I'm one of those people. But they deliver world-changing products and concepts, and they add to our lives. And he was talking about Steve Jobs in a project, and that's how he depicted an SME and an indie. I think the three things that small businesses and entrepreneurs have to add are three things. Passion, we spoke a lot about that today, the passion of a storyteller. Resilience, the fights, the way they think differently. And the best one yet is creativity. The key of creativity will open up for us, I believe, not just in innovation, but the way that we use our imagination, not just for the consumer, but for teams, for suppliers, for the whole chain. How do we change the way that we create product and fragrance? Well, as a shopkeeper, I wanted to illustrate three of these with three shops that changed my life. I was a 16-year-old schoolgirl. I left school at 15. I have no qualifications. You've probably all got MBAs in business. I've got nothing, zilch. And my first job was this little shop in Elizabeth Street. And that was my first boss, a man called Justin DeBlanc. And he was an entrepreneur that changed the way we saw food in London in the 70s. In that little shop, I learnt the passion of a shopkeeper. From day one, I loved going in every single morning. There was something about what he taught me that has stayed with me for every single day and is still with me today. This passion of a shopkeeper and creating something, building something, packaging something, selling something, and then seeing the consumer come back through your door. He taught me 5 things that have stayed with me in a little compass. He taught me how important inspiration is. Because we all talk about innovation and how do we innovative and how do we create products that change the world. But you know, innovation doesn't knock on our door and say, here I am. The oxygen it breathes is inspiration. We need to be inspired. We need to feel our imaginations like Alice going down the hole in the Alice in the Looking Glass. We need to feel that inspiration and that innovation lock together and we start to create. And that's what indies do. Something just takes them off. And when the world is turning one way, an indie will turn the other and think to themselves, I've got an idea. I've got a product that I think will change the world. They're always based on integrity. They're always based on the true heartbeat. I heard Kat say that time and time and time again in her speech this morning. It's based on me. The products I create are like my children. She feels as close to her brand and her product as though they were her family. And that is what I believe entrepreneurial businesses bring. And certainly every day of my life, that is what I intend to do, build on the integrity of who I am. There's an ignition about them. There is something that they do. They don't often have smart offices and big desks and huge teams and budgets. They're at a kitchen table. They're in a little coffee shop. They're sitting in mum's back bedroom and creating product that they know will change the world. And they put something together that just with 2-3 people and an idea and a piece of paper, and they take it to a laboratory to formulate or a packaging. They use this ignition. And then suddenly the world wants to be part. And we've seen it time and time again. And they use their instinct. They use that passion and that gut feeling of, if this doesn't feel right, it's probably not. And if I really believe in this and the world doesn't, I'm still going to believe in it and I'm still going to do it. Because my instinct tells me there is something amazing here. So those first few days of months of me in my first job in that little shop in Elizabeth Street, it taught me passion. The very first fragrance I created was nutmeg and ginger for Joe Malone. The passion of a young woman with no training, just this desire. I had 4 plastic jugs and 2 saucepans, and I was in a little kitchen no bigger than 2 lecterns. There was nothing smart or grand. They were in plastic bottles with little typed labels and in a white Chinese takeaway bag, but the world wanted that product. Kings and queens would send their jets in to come and pick 100 bottles up. And today, nutmeg and ginger still sells all the way across the world. A product I created at a kitchen sink with 4 plastic jugs and a saucepan. Not bad, huh? The second thing I believe is imperative, is resilience. And I was so thrilled to hear earlier on talking about our world and where it is today. And we can't detach ourselves as retailers from what's going on around us. We can't say that it doesn't matter and that we're just focused on what we're doing. It does matter. And the world is looking for security. And it is looking for something that it can believe in. Resilience. An entrepreneur will fall so many times. I know I have. Who else has fallen? Oh, no one. Oh, a few. The passion of an entrepreneur and a small indie is they stand up again. They dust themselves off. They don't care how many times they're going to fall. And that resilience is so vitally important to us as we move forward, whether we're big or whether we're small, because mistakes are often the doorstep to success. How many times have you created something and you made a mistake and made a mistake and made a mistake? And I heard again this morning, what is your greatest challenge when you're creating products that everyone says you can't create. Patience. I don't have lots of patience. I'm not good at that one. But what I would say is that resilience, it puts business muscle on little entrepreneurial businesses. That's why they can turn quickly. That's why they come up with solutions, because they are used every single day to have to think differently. There are no resources sometimes when you're building a business from the ground up. This little shop in Walton Street changed my destiny. When I opened this little shop, it was 300 square feet. I had £100 left in my pocket. On the first day of opening, a man walked in and he offered me $1 million to sell my company that day. I had not even closed the shop door for one day's trading, but he saw something in me that he couldn't believe. I declined because there was a much better offer down the road. But something said to me, Jo, what you're doing is spot on. Keep on doing it. Don't change. We flew to New York, my husband and I. We opened in Bergdorf Goodman. Boy, did we have to learn to be negotiators there. That was a toughie. And during this time of resilience, I learned to be a shopkeeper. I learned to be an entrepreneur. I learned to be a negotiator, a collaborator, a disruptor, a partner. Everything I learned in that little shop, I still have today. It taught me resilience and power. It taught me to think differently. So much so that we went to New York, and Gary and I had no money left. We were about to launch in Bergdorf Goodman. We'd negotiated our site. We'd negotiated packaging using Joe Malone packaging. And there we were. And he said, you have less than £100 to convert New York City. What was I going to do? Think differently, Joe. Think differently. What have we got? And I looked, and there were 2 boxes of empty bags, 2 rolls of black ribbon, and no product. And Gary said to me, put the bags up and put the black ribbon over the top. And I did. And he said, right, we're going to call everybody we know and get them to walk around New York City with bags. And I said, but they're empty. And he said, no one else knows that. We hit $1 million within the first few months. 0 marketing, 0 advertising. Just passion and resilience for a brand. Now, lots of people in the UK have said that's very cheeky, Joe, and you cheated the consumer. I didn't. I used that, and I used the £100 that we had. But that's what indie brands bring. They bring this ability to say, I'll do it with whatever you give in my hand. Whatever is left, I'll pick up, and I will use. Well, as you all know, a much better offer walked through that door with the amazing Leonard Lauder. And in 1999, I sold my business to the Estee Lauder Corporation. And it was an amazing, amazing day, and a decision I would never regret in a million years. But my life took me in a different road without going too much into it. I had a curveball that came from nowhere, and 2 years into an amazing relationship with the Lauder Corporation, I was diagnosed with cancer. What was I going to do? I had a thriving business. I was this little young woman. Son who was 3 years old, and suddenly everything whipped from under my feet. Resilience. What was I going to do? Well, I fought long and hard in this city for a whole year. And after a year, I came back. And I decided that it was suddenly a job to me, and it was time to move on. And so that's what I did. And in 1999, I can't remember what year it was now, I'm terrible with years, but I left, and I exited the brand. Well, during that time, I realized what a huge mistake I'd made for me as an entrepreneurial person, because I couldn't create, and all I could think about was fragrance, morning, noon, and night. And so I made the decision that I was going to start all over again, round a kitchen table with 3 people, 4 plastic jugs, and see if I could create fragrance and build a global brand all over again. Boy, was it a different experience, I can tell you. But the reason this little shop has so much relevance to me, I don't know whether you recognized, but the man standing outside my first shop when I was 16, it's exactly the same shop, exactly the same location. You see, sometimes life will bring us full circle, whether we're in a job, we're building something, but it will bring you full circle, exactly back to where you first started. I don't know why, but it does. And this was my 49th birthday present for my husband. I actually, it was a little box with a ribbon, and I thought it was diamonds. But you would, girls, wouldn't you? You'd think it was diamonds, but it was a key. And he said, go be a shopkeeper again, Joe, because you are an absolute bloody nightmare. And so that is exactly what I did. I went back to the little shop that I had my job in at 16. And as I walked through the front door, I thought to myself, I've got to do it differently. I've got to do it differently. Where do I start? And I walked to the back, and I heard the echo of the past saying to me, you will change the way the world wears fragrance in this place, and you will do it again. Well, have I done it? Not yet, but I am giving it a very, very good shot. When we look at millennials, because I've seen a whole different marketplace walk through those doors, and these young people that are walking in, they're not just sitting looking at their phones and their iPads. They have created a community that is so powerful, but they've created their own language and their own world in which they want to live in. They communicate in a different way. They consume in a different way. They consume information and knowledge and excitement and entertainment, and they literally, just take it all up, and then they spread the word for you. So you think they're not taking anything in. They are. But the key to the whole thing, the thing that I believe is the most precious, the most amazing moment, is they don't just want to be your consumer. They don't just want to be entertained by you. They want to create with you. They want to touch the heartbeat and be part of the creative process of their own product. And you look at their world in which they live. The iPhone creates amazing things. They can communicate on the Nike running shoe. They want to create. They want to be part of it. And so as I started to see these young people start to pour into Elizabeth Street, I started to question really what I was doing. Was it enough? I'd created this amazing little tapas bar within 42 Elizabeth Street, somewhere that people could come and just sit and enjoy. And it started with just one fragrance and the concept, one little fragrance called Pomelo. I call it my best friend, because after creating fragrance for 5 years, I couldn't do it as easily as I thought. And it took a good year for me to come back into the industry. But Pomelo says to me, you walked away for a bit, don't ever walk away again, because this is who you are. And that is what indie brands bring. They bring everything, good and bad. They disrupt, they muck everything up. It's a bit like having a really beautiful, white, smart kitchen where everything's in its place. And you get these entrepreneurial businesses come in and they cook dinner and they pull every plate, every spoon. They create mess everywhere. But then when you sit down to dinner, you taste something that you never tasted in your life before. So how was I going to do it differently the second time round? I created this little tapas bar. I've always wanted to do QVC, so I've decided to set up my own here. I created this tiny little tapas bar in London where it is like a brasserie bar. You sit there and you order 4 courses of tapas for your nose. Nothing to do with eating. You can't eat anything. We have these big signs everywhere saying, please don't eat, please don't eat. Just smell, just smell. But your first course is a tagine that appears with bath cologne, with chopsticks and dim sum. The body lotion appears from veloute guns, and we take huge big paintbrushes and we paint you. Why are the young people enjoying this? Because we are creating together. And they suddenly see the brand for the first time. We call it our first kiss, because who remembers in the room their first kiss? I'm not going to ask you to share stories, apart from Pete. Pete? It's known, we call this our first kiss because it's the moment that we kiss the consumer for the very first time. and they never forget it. We don't charge for it. It's free of charge. You come in, you sit down, you order tapas, and then it translates into 97% of the time into a sale. It's worth it. But what it does is it communicates us with our consumer. We start to open up this whole conversation. It adds value with no cost, but it establishes a really, really strong relationship. And what I'm going to just do is I'm just going to give you a tiny, tiny, tiny little taster of one of the tapas things, which is a shower gel, which will come from cocktail shakers. So I'm just going to do it, and then we can send it round. So this is, we got the first one. So it's normally got ice in it, and it has a lovely clinking. So everybody sits at the bar, and we can have 16 to 18 people every hour, every Saturday. They sit there, 3 generations of people. So the young people bring their grandparents and their mother, their friends, and they sit there, and they all enjoy fragrance tapas. And they all, so let's do 2. So we've got a fresh pomelo and a white rose. You choose your shot. You choose whatever you want in the cocktail. And so I'm going to pass these around so you can just smell it. Now you're saying to me, Joe, that's a shower gel in a cocktail glass. I know. I know. Nice of you to do that. But it kisses the consumer for the first time, and they never forget it. And they bring back. Charlotte and I went to Shanghai in China. Everybody else had budgets of hundreds of thousands of pounds. We had 500, and we built a tiny little tapas bar, much tinier than that. We went to IKEA in Shanghai and kitted ourselves out with nothing. And we stood there in Shanghai. We were traveling with the Great Campaign with Prince William. And we all had to do our bit. We all had to stand and fight for Great Britain, of which we did. And I started to serve tapas. The first 10 minutes, there were no more than 4 Chinese people. Do you know what happened by the end of that hour? We had 4 camera crews, 1,500 Chinese wanting to experience tapas, and the whole territory opened up for us. We didn't spend more than £750. That's what indies bring. They can turn on they can use their creativity in such a different way. My husband said to me when we started Joe Loves, I need you to do 2 things. I need you to create me a patented product every year. No small feat. Well, I delivered on the first one. Can a candle really have a patent? Has it ever changed since the Roman times? So Vogue printed. Well, yes. And this idea came to me not in a smart museum or a gallery or a library or anywhere grand. It was here in New York City in the Pop-Tart studio in Times Square. And I sat and I watched. Do you know what Pop-Tarts are? Oh, yeah. Those horrible things that you pop in toasters. And this was a studio, and they were creatively creating Pop-Tarts, custom ordered. $12 a box. And I sat there for 2 hours and watched them do it. And I thought, I am going to do that with candles. 3 years it took me to do it. And the patented process takes ages and ages and ages in the UK. But we now have a global patent on a shot candle. And you come in, and it's like a cocktail bar. I like cocktails. It's a cocktail bar for candles. So you choose your base, you choose your shot, and together we create your first candle. Made it all very easy, very, very simple. The other concept, could I ever change the way the world wears fragrance? Now, I was really nervous about doing this next bit because we haven't launched this product yet in the UK, but we will in September. My father was an artist, and so I was very used to the process of artistry and painting with brushes and with canvases. And I was sitting creating a fragrance one day, and I was sitting with my paintbrushes, and I was painting my arms and my legs and anything else I could find. And I suddenly thought, you know, this is such a clever way of wearing fragrance. Could this be the paradigm shift that I was looking for? Ooh, you like that one? Could this be the moment in which we change, I change. I change the way the world uses fragrance. Could they really trust me to pick up a paintbrush and start to paint their bodies? So don't look at your body as though it's a body anymore. Don't pick up a bottle and spray behind your ears or on your arms. But pick up a paintbrush and look at your body like an empty canvas. What could you do? How could you create? Well, we launched the fragrance paintbrush in September in the UK, and we're going to show you for the very first time. But what I will, if you don't mind, is just ask for 2 volunteers. Jenny, would you mind being one? Are you sure? And I like a man. Would you mind? Are you sure? Oh, okay. Okay. So, Jenny, we're just here. So this here, is the fragrance paintbrush. Hold on, I'm going to do it. Yeah. Sorry. That's good. And it is formulated, it's a cologne, but it has been formulated in a gel. So otherwise, you click that and the fragrance just rushes out the other end. So can I just have your arm? So on Jenny, I'm going to paint white rose with fresh lemon leaves. Can you see right over there? Yeah? Click. And this really, really cool gel. So we're looking at the whole body just being a canvas. Hold on. Okay.
I'm not sure about the whole body thing.
I'll only do your arm. But you could take the fragrance paintbrush and it's suddenly jewelry and it's suddenly fashion. You can paint some earrings around here. You can take a different fragrance paintbrush and take it through your hair. You can paint it down the backs of your legs. You can take a fragrance paintbrush and start to look at your body and paint with whole different... I must make sure I get pomelo for you, otherwise you'll smell like a girl. For a man...
Can you wear your glasses? Sure.
Yeah, no, it is. So you're going to take pomelo.
Oh.
And it goes and it dries. So imagine just painting that all over to your body and it'll dry in a second. And how about taking a tiny little bit of smoked plum and leather. There we go. So this is a really rich, woody fragrance. And just running a pinstripe all the way up the suit. So can you see? Yeah. The artistry of pulling it all together and starting to just paint the body.
I got my PR filming, I'm nervous.
All over. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. So, thank you very much. Your body is the canvas. You are the artist. Now paint with fragrance. Could this be the moment at which the world changes the way they wear fragrance? I do hope so. Thank you. But the unbelievable things that can come from this, that we could start to create and change the world. And when I was listening today, how do you make fragrance visual? Well, this suddenly you're pulled into the storytelling, the passion, the looking at something differently. And where else does this go? What else can we do? Because you know the real power of a brand when it comes in and it disrupts is not necessarily the brand that you buy, it's the influence they have on everybody else. Because you watch what I've just done, now you're all thinking, what could we do? Because that's what it does. The inspiration moment starts to activate our brains, so they start to think creatively and in a very different way. Passion, resilience, and creativity. And I believe wholeheartedly that as I move forward with Joe Loves, this small little brand taking it, the world thinks we are in literally every city. We've just come back from the Middle East, from China, and from various parts of the world. We are one shop in Elizabeth Street. One website and one American website. That's it. But the power of the storytelling is starting to go out so powerfully that the world is coming back and knocking on our door and saying, we want to work together. The resilience of an entrepreneur, resilience is a good thing. Tough times are a good thing because it makes us think differently. And the creativity and artists, the respect, that is the key that will unlock the power of the millennial. Thank you very much. And I'm going to open up for questions.
Great, thank you very much.
That's it.
So, is it possible for big companies to keep entrepreneurs? What could Lauder have done to keep you?
I was the one that left because I'd fought cancer. And my mind was I'd done chemotherapy for a year. And I'm proud of what Lauder have done with Joe Malone. And I don't regret that decision for a second, not a second.
And who offered you £1 million for your business?
Dollars. They offered it was $1 million.
Oh, dollars.
It was either a really horrible setup or it was really. He was a New Yorker. So if there's any one of you, he was I would recognize him in a second if I saw him. And he was a lawyer, and he'd been instructed by somebody to offer me $1 million that day, but to sell. But I hadn't even closed the door. I'd not even done one day's trading. So I don't know.
And then, what are your plans to expand Joe Loves? And would you have more freestanding stores or stores with partners?
I think the moment that we're living in is one of the most exciting times for retail because there's plates are shifting everywhere. The expansion of Joe Loves, we spent 3 years blueprinting it, getting it right, change of packaging, all those kind of things that you do when you're evolving a brand. She's now ready to go. I'm secure, and we're literally going out into the territories. I spent 2 years working in the Middle East, prepping and getting ready. We're ready to launch in the Middle East. We're doing something here in the United States. And China has opened up at a phenomenal pace. I mean, that little tapas bar in Shanghai opened up that country. We had no PR. We didn't have anything. We weren't selling the product. And our little shop in Elizabeth Street, it just is amazing. Every single day, we have at least 100 Chinese consumers coming through the door. Amazing.
Any questions directly from the audience?
That's it.
Hi, thank you so much. This was amazing. I'm a big fan, so it's really exciting to hear you speak and to hear about your new brand. My question is regarding the future of fragrance, specifically mass fragrance. You spoke a lot to what millennials want, and I am a millennial. And a lot of us are looking for that customization, and we want the opportunity to be creative, exactly like you said. And you see brands that are a lot about storytelling, whether it's Nest or Clean or Byredo, that really kind of invite you into this environment. And we're looking a lot more toward, especially millennials with disposable income, those kind of really niche fragrances where, no, I'm not going to tell you where I got it. And Joe Loves speaks so much to that. What can mass brands do, or even more traditional fragrance brands do, to kind of get in on this? Is there a future for them, or are they just too big to play?
No, I don't think. I think there's a place for everybody. You know what? We don't have all the answers, but we do have part of the answer. And I think there will always be, I don't want a world where it's just niche brands, because we learn from each other. And I think, it's all very well looking at the today and the future, and that's what we're here to talk about today. But you can't detach your past. You can't detach all the wonderful things that we have learned and the people that we've met and the things that we've done really well. So I think there will always be it's not my marketplace, and it's not a marketplace I understand. I'm sometimes challenged. I've just started to work with a team of perfumers, and we decided that we would create fragrance very differently. So there's no briefs. There's no written briefs, whatever. I get them to sit, listen to music, and then I split them as though they're an orchestra. And I went, okay, wind, right, you're white flowers. You're going to do citrus. And then we create all these notes like music, and then we lock them together. And then we finish the fragrance. So there's no written brief. We actually just rely on that gut instinct. So could that affect the mass fragrance market? Yes, of course it can. The creative process will eventually. And I think, becoming the artist, there is something captivating about that. And where else does it go? what else could we do with that? So it's an exciting time. I'm so glad I came back to fragrance as well.
Any other questions?
Lovely, lovely, lovely story. What was the hardest thing about starting over again, and what did you do to help you get over the hump?
It was a very different experience. I thought it was going to be much easier, but in my naivety, I didn't realise that nobody knew I'd left Jo Malone in the first place. And then I was the person Jo Malone, and then I was Jo Malone over there. It was, if I had known how tough those first 2 years would have been, I would never have done it. And if anyone had offered me a job, I would have taken it. But no one did. So I didn't have a choice, really. I had to either spend the rest of my life regretting not doing the one thing, because I'm dyslexic, so I can't drive, I can't tell my left from my right, I can't swim, I can't do lots of things, but I can create fragrance brilliantly. And that's really why I wanted to come back. It was a bit like standing on a stage in the very beginning when we launched Jo Loves in your underwear and everybody watching you. And I made, for some crazy thing, I made every mistake in the book. I got the packaging wrong. I got the first shot wrong. But what I knew, what was in the bottle was right. I knew the integrity of that, and I had to keep trying, that resilience I was talking about. And now I look at it and I think I'm so glad I didn't quit. And when I go and do talks to children, I say to them, never, or entrepreneurs, never quit on a bad day. Because if you quit on a bad day, sometimes the following week, the whole landscape's changed and you think, why did I do that? So if you're going to give up on something, do it when you're standing on the top of the mountain, not when you can't see the landscape ahead of you.